All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to another edition of the X Zone. My name is Rob McConnell, and I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. Tonight is UFO night here in the X Zone. My first guest tonight is Preston Dennett, who will be followed by Kevin Randall, and we're just talking about UFOs, unidentified flying objects, or as they now like to be called, unknown aerial phenomena. I understand the aliens were tired of the UFO name, so they got Congress to change it, and, well, here we are. Are you a skeptic or a believer? Have you seen a UFO? Do you believe in UFOs? How about aliens, alien abductions? Well, tonight we're going to be discussing all that. And as always, you, the listener, make up your own mind. I'll present a guest who is an expert in the field. And, well, we're going to take the interview as it develops, as we always do here in the X Zone. My first guest tonight is Preston Dennett. He began investigating UFOs and the paranormal in 1986, when he discovered that his family, friends, and co-workers were having dramatic, unexplained encounters. Since then, he has interviewed hundreds of witnesses and investigated a wide variety of paranormal phenomenon. He is a field investigator for the Mutual UFO Network, also known as MUFON, a ghost hunter, a paranormal researcher, and the author of 30 books and more than 100 articles on UFOs and the paranormal. Joining me now is Preston Dennett. And Preston, welcome back to the X Zone. Always great having you with us, my friend.
Thank you, Rob. It's a pleasure.
All right. What's new with you, buddy? You're always doing something new and exciting every time I speak to you. Is there anything new in the world of UFOs, alien abductions, or things that go bump in the night?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's an exciting time for UFO research, I think, with all the recent developments, steps towards, I won't call it disclosure, I'll put that in quotes, but definitely some official discussion, which is pretty interesting. Yeah, a lot of movement for once.
Have you heard of any flaps or multiple sightings of UFOs, alien abductions, cattle mutilations lately?
Not lately. It's been pretty quiet lately. I think there's a lot of what I would call reverse engineering craft probably flying around, TR-3Bs and the like. As far as waves of sightings, no. It's been quiet.
Why do you think it's been so quiet? I've noticed that as well. I've been monitoring the news feeds as well as the different UFO organizations, and it is extremely quiet out there, just as if they're waiting for the big one to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there could be a number of reasons for that. People are reluctant to talk about it. It takes them a while to come forward, or it is just plain quiet. I've talked to a few contactees, one in particular, Dolly Safran, who I wrote a book about. She says, well, basically the ETs are not able to fly around easily right now because of our magnetic fields being so chaotic. And if you look that up, science-wise, there's an awful lot of coronal mass ejections and CMEs and the internet and all this stuff being knocked out. So that could be a factor.
Now, how did you first get involved in UFO research, Preston?
kicking and screaming involuntarily. I'm not even kidding. I mean, I hated it. I
Really?
assumed really there was nothing to this. And what I found out was I really just bought into the Air Force party line that all encounters can be explained as one of three things: hoaxes, hallucinations, or misperceptions. But thankfully, it was years ago. I was quite young, 1986, 21 years old, when I heard about a report on the news about a sighting over Alaska. And that's when I found out my brother had seen a UFO. My two sister-in-laws, one saw gray ETs. I had a couple of friends who had very close encounters. One had missing time. People at work as well. And that was enough to just knock me over and get me interested in this subject.
When you said kicking and screaming, were you that a hardcore skeptic?
I was, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and it was pretty scandalizing to find out that people I loved and trusted were not telling me what had happened to them.
Why do you think they kept it from you?
I asked them, and they said, "You would not have believed me. You would have made fun of me." And I had to admit that that was true.
But with all the news about UFOs, UAPs, the Tic Tac sightings, as well as the congressional investigations, why are people still reluctant to talk about it? It seems that everybody else is talking about it except those who have had contact, those who have had sightings, or those who have been abducted.
Yeah, well, the cover-up and the policy to discredit witnesses has been extremely effective. A lot of time, money, and energy, our tax dollars, has been spent towards this. And I think we're still suffering from that. We're all victims of the UFO cover-up, and especially those who have contact.
Okay, why does the government care so much about something that everybody talks about and that a lot of people have seen? What's the sense in trying to cover it up when there's nothing left to cover up?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had an answer to that question. I think ultimately it comes down to the distinct probability that we do have these craft. We have ET technology, and there's a lot of power and money and greed and control behind all of this. So I suspect that that's one of the main reasons. And I think that's one of the main reasons behind disclosure as well, because they're starting to lose control of the narrative. If they don't start, stepping forth and giving answers, they're going to become not credible, our governments or the secret government. I think that's why we're seeing at least some movement.
But couldn't that be said as well for the UFO community? That if there was to be disclosure and it was found out, now this is just hypothetical, this is not what I'm saying will happen, Preston, but if it was found out that all the sightings could be explained as secret terrestrial craft being developed for the military, and there is no such things as extraterrestrials or UFOs from other planets, other dimensions, other galaxies, what would that do to the UFO community?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a death blow, but I just don't see that happening because there's far too much evidence, far too many cases of people seeing actual ETs that reach back well before this could have been reverse engineered. And we've got cases back to the 20s and 30s of objects that are flying around in ways that we could not possibly have duplicated at that time.
Why? Can you give me some examples of reversed engineering that you're talking about?
Yeah, that is not my area of expertise.
Okay.
I try to follow it as best as I can, but as near as I can tell, people are pointing to the TR-3B in particular, a large triangular craft,
Right.
which is silent, and if you see it, would be very convincing as a genuine craft. But there's a lot of whistleblowers out there. I've interviewed a few. There was one gentleman who was literally on his deathbed in a hospital and wanted to do his part for disclosure. And long story short, told me how he had worked at Edwards Air Force Base as a subcontractor and saw what he thought was a UFO. And his employer refused to talk about it until years later and finally admitted that it wasn't a UFO, but was in fact a reverse engineered craft using ET technology based on the principle of counter-rotating magnets. It created a magnetic field outside of the craft which would propel it in the desired direction.
Well,
but he said it looked like your classic UFO.
Yeah. Well, weren't the Germans also working on that technology going back to the Second World War?
That's right. Yeah, and if you look into that, there's
Mm-hmm.
some pretty good reporting that they may have encountered some craft themselves and obtained some of this technology.
Well, I'm just wondering, Preston, isn't it possible that this technology has nothing to do with alien technology, that it was actually developed by secret projects like those that are going on in Skunkworks by humans, and that there is no ET interference or ET thumbprint anywhere?
No, I don't think that's a possibility at all. Far too many people have reported being taken on board these
Mm-hmm.
craft, physically examined, healed, given messages of all kinds. It's not just, thousands.
Yeah.
Some polling indicates
Mm-hmm.
that it could well be in the millions. So I don't think any explanations of this being solely government hold any water.
But there are a lot of people out there making claims, Preston, of being abducted or seeing a UFO or being a whistleblower who aren't. So who is the public to believe?
Yeah, this is something that's very important for people to do, is to do your
Mm-hmm.
research and, seek it out. I would not trust our governments. They've been proven as liars. But if you want to know the truth about UFO contact, pretty much everything we know that we can verify comes from the contactees themselves. And I think we've got substantial evidence. I mean, I alone have several really convincing implant cases,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of the smoking gun. But we have landing trace cases, we've got lots of radar returns and physiological evidence, healings and injuries. And, I mean, we could go on and on about the huge amount of evidence that's out there.
But if you're talking about trace evidence, landing evidence, or other radar returns, they don't necessarily mean that they're extraterrestrial.
Well, that's true, but I think when you look at the onboard encounters, there's really no chance of misperception at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people say, well, hypnosis is not reliable,
That's right, yeah.
and that's one reason I've really shied away from it. I would say 80 to 90% of the cases I've reported on and are in my books
Mm-hmm.
do not involve hypnosis. They involve fully conscious recall. I think hypnosis works, but because of the controversy surrounding it,
Yeah.
I can safely say no, that does not account for what the people I've talked to are reporting.
How do you vet the people that you talk to in order to substantiate that what they're telling you is the truth?
Sure. Well, you go through the whole process that a normal investigator would do.
Mm-hmm.
You get corroborating witnesses, character references, repeatedly interview them, verify what details you can through fact checking,
Right.
this sort of thing. But you start to get a feel for it, because when you talk to people
Mm-hmm.
and they become very emotional, they're very concerned about their name being used. They will say things like, I don't do drugs. I have no history of mental illness. I've got a good job. I'm well educated. Please don't use my name.
But why wouldn't they want their name used? And I'm going to hold it there because I've got to take my break. But when we come back, that's a very interesting point. They give you all this information. They give you their credentials, but they don't want to give you their name. Food for thought over this next break, Exo Nation. Our guest is Preston Dennett. His website is prestondennett.weebly.com. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We come to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and around the world on classic1220.ca. Are you a believer or are you a skeptic? Food for thought again. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Do you know the way to San Jose? I've been away so long, I may go wrong and lose my way. Do you know the way to San Jose? I'm going back to find some peace of mind in San Jose. LA is a great big freeway. Put 100
Welcome back, everyone. I may not know the way to San Jose, but I certainly do know the way to St. Catharines, Ontario, where we're coming to you from right here from our broadcast center and studios on Classic 1220 and classic1220.ca. Preston Dennett is our special guest. His website is prestondennett.weebly.com. Preston, how do we explain why they don't want their names given if they give all the other information when they leave out the last part of the information that would make them more credible than not giving their name?
Yeah, and I always mention that to the witnesses, can I use your name? They're very wary to have their name used for the reasons of that we listed already, fear of ridicule and disbelief primarily. Back when I started doing this research, it was most people. Thankfully, that's turned around. In my recent book, which has 20 cases, 12 did allow me to use their full name. A couple said first name only, but the majority said, yes, that's fine. So it is turning around, but it's still a problem.
Speaking of about books, I understand you have a latest book called Humanoids and High Strangeness.
That's right, yep.
What's that about, buddy?
I'm super excited about this book because this one focuses solely on cases of people who've seen humanoids of various kinds. And I've got cases from all over the world in this one: Germany, England, South America, all over the place. Of course, Canada, the United States. So these are cases where people have seen a wide variety of humanoids, certainly grays, but praying mantis, human-looking ETs, short little blue beings, reptilian, you name it. Now, I think a lot of times that the high strangeness aspect gets edited out of people's accounts in an attempt to make this subject more credible. I didn't want to do that. I think it's important to really bring all the evidence forth, no matter how strange. So that's kind of the theme of this book, is really telling the whole story, no matter how bizarre it might seem.
When people talk about ETs, they only have in their mind the visions of the ones that they see on television. How many different ETs would you say, or would your witnesses say, that are presently visiting this planet and interacting with humans?
I would say there's 4 or 5 main different types, but beyond that, there's a category that's kind of a catch-all, and it's almost endless, the variation. Interestingly, they're pretty much exclusively humanoid. By that I mean bipedal, 2 arms, 2 legs, and so forth. But beyond that, grays, praying mantis, and human-looking are by far the most common. Little blue beings, tall whites. But there are just what I would call unique humanoids. Certainly a few in this latest book. And I don't know how to categorize a lot of them. I think we probably all do share a common heritage, because that is the message a lot of contactees get. So it's difficult to categorize them, but I'm not sure I'd even call them different species necessarily, because people are being told we all do share a common heritage.
Praying mantis, isn't that a giant-sized bug?
Yes, and it's so odd because we have how many different kinds of bugs on this planet? Why praying mantis?
Yeah, exactly.
It's very odd, but you're kind of stuck with the stories. This is what people are reporting. And when so many people who don't know each other and often shy away from UFO books and the whole literature because it scares them, they're reporting the same things, the same details, and that brings a level of credibility and corroboration.
I don't know if that does anymore, because prior to the internet, I would have agreed with you. Now anyone with the access to the internet, no matter if they're in Russia or if they're in France or Bulgaria or Canada, the Yukon, wherever, they can read the articles about the different postings that have been put on the internet and come up with the exact same description of an alien without ever seeing one. So how do we know that these people are telling the truth?
Yeah, it's a huge problem. Same thing with photographic evidence, which is now so easily faked. And I won't even take a look at it unless a person's willing to stand behind it and absolutely describe what they saw before and after they took the photograph. Yeah, it's a problem. But there are still little details, as a researcher, I think we can recognize A lot of these that aren't perhaps super well known. And I would point to one, well, I'll give it away. I hate to do it, but often people describe the interior of a UFO. We do hear very similar and well-known descriptions, such as rounded walls, indirect lighting, this sort of thing. But one thing you don't hear a lot about, but keeps coming up, is I ask people, what size was this, the room you were in? And they will say, oh, it's 20 feet or 30 feet. But sometimes they'll say, well, it seemed to change size. And they get really, kind of reluctant to tell me that. And I can understand why, because it's so bizarre. But this is something that keeps coming up. And the room might even look larger on the inside than the craft on the outside. So that's one of several details that aren't perhaps super well known.
Right.
But are reported consistently.
If we're all connected, according to the contactees and those who have been up in the craft and had contact with the various species of aliens, why would it take different sections of alien life to come and visit us? Why the Nordics? Why the Greys? Why the praying mantis instead of just one?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're asking me to speculate. The fact is we are seeing many different types. And why not? I mean, we are certainly, by all accounts, not alone out there. And there appears to be all different types of ETs. And as near as I can tell, they're working together. It's not at all unusual for people to see different types of ETs on board. For example, one lady I interviewed who had an encounter as a young girl was invited basically on board a craft where she was met by a praying mantis type ET, which was about 6 feet tall. That's on the short end. But also on board were a bunch of little grays. It was a very benevolent encounter. In short, they gave her a warning. And she's just a little girl, a warning about war and violence, and showed her that all these things would happen and it's up to us to do our part to get along. She's thinking, I'm just a little girl. Why are you telling me this? But this is the warning they most often give to people.
If they are out there and if they do have the ability to communicate in a manner which we understand, why do they not just make a sudden appearance if they can't get through to those in power and contact, let's say, Joe Biden or, Prime Minister Trudeau or someone with the ability to make the decisions instead of these people who are basically common day Joes? Why don't they do that?
Yeah, well, if you look into it, it looks like they probably did. There's quite a bit of reporting. I would point to the 1954 alleged landing at, Edwards Air Force Base with President Eisenhower. That is one example of several. I think the ETs are doing what amounts to a grassroots campaign because our own government is covering this up, not telling the truth. There's no transparency on this subject. So I think the ETs are doing basically a publicity campaign to announce their presence, which is why we have so many, say, schoolyard encounters. Right. I wrote a book on that. Yeah. Or encounters over drive-in theaters. I found 100 cases of that. These are what UFO researchers call displays, where they're clearly wanting to be seen. So I think that there is, to a limited extent, an effort to announce their presence.
But this doesn't make any sense to me. That if they have the ability, why have they been playing hide and seek since 1947? They've had plenty of opportunity to make it bang. Here we are. And if they are there, help us for God's sake. Our planet is in peril. We have wars. We have lack of food, lack of water. We have diseases. If they are coming here and they're putting on this big front about being benevolent and they're not helping us, to me, they're anything but benevolent. And my big question is, how do we know that the government does in fact know this and have this knowledge? Something is wrong with this whole picture. You've got the ETs playing tag or in hide and seek. You've got claims of the government hiding this information. if the ETs are doing a PR campaign, man, they desperately need another campaign manager because they suck at it. and if the government is covering up, how come there has been no computer hacker from any other country that has cracked into the government files and exposed these files? Something doesn't make sense here.
There's no doubt that there's a government cover-up. That's easily demonstrable.
How?
Through documents released from the Freedom of Information Act. I would point to the hundreds, and we're approaching thousands now, of whistleblowers who are insiders, people with high levels of credibility, great sterling resumes, who are not being effectively debunked. So it's clear that there is a government cover-up.
But wait a second, Preston. Hold on here. If these people are so pristine and if their credentials are impeccable, why don't they come forward in public? Why are they hiding?
There's multiple reasons for it. This can, many of them have signed NDAs, non-disclosure agreements.
Okay, so just hold that for a sec. If they sign these NDAs and they're breaking their oath to the government of the country where they live, how can we trust anything they say?
Well, this is one of the issues here. There's one gentleman I interviewed. His name is Ray Sachs, who was an electrician's mate on the USS Clamagore. And he started telling me an amazing story where a USO, an unidentified submersible object, approached the Clamagore, which carried nuclear torpedoes. This is back in 1971. And it was quite a story. And I asked him, did you sign an NDA? Are you sure it's okay to tell me this? And he said, well, yeah, they told me not to talk, but I never signed anything. And he, being quite elderly, felt like it was his duty to report this.
Wait a sec. You're telling me that somebody in the Navy doesn't take an oath of secrecy?
He was not told specifically that he couldn't talk about this.
Are you sure he was in the Navy?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I verified his employment. I found the whole passenger or crew listing on the Clamagore. There he was. You can look it up. And
was there a photo of him?
Not in the listing.
How do we know he didn't steal somebody's identity just to make himself look good? It does happen.
Yeah, I mean, it does.
Stolen valor.
If you listen to his testimony, no, I vetted him. It's him. There's no doubt. There is a really vicious, brutal disinformation campaign in this field. And it's really unfortunate. I got involved in this field quite innocently, thinking, wow, this is interesting. With no real idea, certainly in the beginning, that there was a cover-up and disinformation and outright lies. So
how do we know it's not the UFO community who's doing the disinformation campaign and spreading all the lies and the rumors? How do we know that? Just think about that. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as the X Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, right here on Classic 1220, your hometown radio, www.classic1220.ca.
You know the way to San Jose. I've been away so long, I may go wrong and lose my way. Do you know the way to San Jose? I'm going back to find some peace of mind in San Jose. LA is a great big freeway. Put 100 down and buy a car. In a week, maybe two, they'll make you a star.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our hometown radio studios and offices here in St. Catharines on Classic 1220, www.classic1220.ca. Preston Dennett is our guest this hour. www.prestondennett.weebly.com. He also has a Facebook page, facebook.com/Preston.Dennett. Okay, Preston, how do we know that it's not the UFO community itself, or people who are just seeking information and the lie has gotten so big that they just can't backpedal?
Well, I challenge anyone who is a skeptic to ask their group of people around them, their family, their friends, their coworkers, people they love and trust, and start there. And you will see that there is absolute validity to this subject. There's no doubt this field attracts hoaxers and people on the fringe.
Yeah.
And I think liars and disinformation artists.
Okay.
Within probably being funded by our own governments.
Oh, now, but there's no proof of that, Preston.
I don't know. Look at the research Stanton Friedman did on Donald Menzel. So I think that there is some really good evidence of that. That's not my area of expertise. I focus mostly on people who are having direct contact. I can tell you for sure, a lot of people are reporting this. Far too many for this to be hoaxes or hallucinations or misperceptions. This is happening.
Or people looking for their 5 minutes of claim in a book, on a radio interview, or on a TV show.
Certainly that does come up, but as I said, most people do not want their name used. They know how viciously people can attack. I know people have lost their jobs over this. This is serious stuff.
It is. I agree with you 150% on that, Preston. I really do. But you were, look at all the crap on YouTube and on Rumble and all the other video and audio platforms out there. Anybody with a microphone and a $50 camera can do anything they want. There's no way of credibly identifying what is true or what is false. And the more sensationalistic the story, the more followers that these people get. Sensationalism sells. In the media, there's a saying, if it don't bleed, it don't lead.
Yeah, it's a real problem. We can't trust a lot of what our own media is telling. Even the news has gotten to a point where it's really difficult to discern the truth, which is why I do make every effort I can to just report the facts as we know them. And you see a lot of people who are doing shoddy research in this field. I can count the number of researchers that I respect in this field on one hand, seriously. Sure. I think back in the day, there was a lot more serious effort by pioneering people within this field, like Donald Kehoe. I consider him a real hero. J. Allen Hynek, Dr. James McDonald, Jim and Coral Lorenzen. But those types of researchers are now few and far between. It's real unfortunate.
Well, that's because back then they really did research instead of just sitting at home, on their comfy chair in front of their computer and taking a little bit from here, a little bit from there, a little bit from here, a little bit there, throwing it into AI and coming up with this whole new scenario.
Exactly. I like researchers who have boots on the ground, who are going out there and talking to the people face to face, going to the locations. So this is what we need more of in this field.
But how are we going to get that, Preston?
Well, by doing shows like this and encouraging people to look for the truth.
Yeah.
This is super important right now because, as you said, there's so much disinformation out there, so much bad reporting, and this field is a very difficult one for researchers to navigate. And I really feel for the people who are having experiences, because they know this, and this is why they often do keep quiet.
And it's also very hard for people who are looking for the truth in this field to try and grasp what is real and what isn't. When you've got people coming on radio shows like ours, we had a lady on a couple of weeks ago who was telling the audience there was over 180 different alien species here on this planet. Another person comes on and says, oh, yeah, I'm married to an alien from the Pleiades. I've got 2 alien children. I apparently was abducted when I was 12, and I even got to drive the UFO. Now, come on.
Yeah, I mean, we have people out there who are seriously trying to put forth the flat Earth theory.
Yeah.
Which is, just so easily disputed with common sense, not to mention, Science 101. I really think it's important that people who have a platform vet their own guests carefully.
Yeah.
Because this is a problem. And these people who are, clearly looking for a dollar or just their 15 minutes of fame should not be given the platform to do that. This is a serious subject. It's affecting people profoundly, and not just a few. I interviewed hundreds of people, and I always ask them, did you go public? Did you call the police? Did you call MUFON? They will say, what's MUFON? No, I didn't call the police. 1 in 100, and I'm being generous, report their encounter in any official capacity. So any estimates as to how common this is far too low.
In my opinion, when they don't call the police or make an official report, I don't give that sighting or that encounter any credibility, because if they're not willing to go on the record, except on books and on radio shows and on YouTube videos, then to me they're not credible.
Well, I'm not sure that that's a good yardstick, because we have people who are absolutely having encounters and they have corroboration to prove it. They have implants showing up on x-rays. They have multiple witnesses within their family and within their community. There is evidence to support people's accounts. It's not just anecdotal by any means.
So why don't they go why don't they go and make official reports?
Because the police will laugh at them. Honest to God, the Air Force will not take their calls. And they do report them to a UFO organization. And UFO organizations have their own problems. People make a report and their report disappears. I've talked to people who are very unhappy with some popular UFO organizations because they weren't treated well. So it's still a problem. This is why I do this research, because we have a lot of work to do.
I agree with you that there needs to be a stricter vetting code when it comes to anyone who makes a claim of the paranormal. Not just UFOs, Preston, not just ETs, but when it comes to Bigfoot, when it comes to hauntings, the entire field is filled with charlatans. And like you said, those who have had the legitimate ones are the people who suffer. So how do we do it? How do we clean up this mess that we, the media, we, the people who use the internet, we, the people who write the books, we, the people who produce the TV shows, and we, the people that watch and listen and hear everything? How do we clean this mess?
Yeah, well, people need to start using critical thinking, for one, and not supporting those who have unsubstantiated accounts. And we see them fall by the wayside every now and then. This person was proven to be a liar, or that person, and they're discredited. This should not happen late in the game. People need to use their own ability to discern the truth. It's not hard. Yeah.
You see, something that I found in the UFO field, there's a lot of stolen valor. A lot of people who claim to have been in the military that never were. There was one UFO investigator from Waco, Texas, Cleburne, Texas, who claimed to have been a former police officer and in the U.S. SEALs. And he was found out to be a liar, a fraud. Stolen valor. And there are other instances of other people within the UFO community who've made claims claiming they're in the military who clearly weren't. And once again, you have stolen valor. So how do we weed that out when people are even stealing the identities of members of the military just to give themselves credibility?
Yeah, well, I don't think there's any easy answer to this except doing the hard work. This is not a problem that's solely limited to this field by any means. We see this all over with mainstream science, with politics. I mean, you name it. Corruption is rife in our society these days.
I understand that, and these are hard times, and the accessibility to making yourself someone who you aren't is very easy thanks to the internet, thanks to paper mills, and thanks to artificial intelligence. I agree 100%. But when somebody does that, knowingly, whether it's stolen valor, false credentials, lying to get their 15 minutes of fame or even their 5 minutes of fame because they think, oh, well, wait a minute, if we all get together and say that we investigated a UFO sighting that, or a ghost haunting or Bigfoot, that we're going to get that TV show that's going to make us millionaires. There has to be a limit. There has to be a stop put to all this.
Yeah, well, look what happened at the recent congressional hearings when we had the head of the Defense Department, Moultrie and Daley, were being questioned about the UFO subject and asked, have we ever shot at these craft? And they both said no. Okay. That's demonstrably false. They lied. These are the people who are very high level in government.
How do you know they lied?
Because we have documents proving, look at the Battle of LA, 1942, where an object appeared over Culver City, and we shot 14 rounds of ammunition. I talked to a first-hand witness.
Right, but that was also in the same time where Japan was using fugos, sending over bombs using high-altitude balloons and dropping stuff on the United States. That was the same time. So how do we know they weren't fugos that they were firing at?
Because this object stayed in place for 2 hours. 15 rounds of ammunition were shot at it. You could see, I mean, there's photographs of these shells exploding around this thing. I talked to a first-hand witness. He saw one of these objects, and there were multiple of them come over his home at treetop level. So this was not a balloon.
How many other people? How many other people saw it at treetop level?
Well, there's a book on this case that I highly recommend by Terrence Sword called The Battle of Los Angeles, and you can go through it. And there's some really compelling testimonies in it. And this is just one incident all throughout the 1950s. Look at the work by Frank Ficino Jr., Don't Shoot Them Down. He's another researcher who I think has done some really excellent work in this area. We have shot at these craft. There's no doubt about it. Another thing that really bothered me about that congressional hearing was when they were asked about the Malmstrom incident of 1967, where UFOs showed up, and we've got multiple eyewitness testimonies on this, and allegedly shut down our nuclear-tipped missiles. And they said they have no reporting on this. I don't know about it.
Oh, you're talking about Captain Robert Salas and his claims.
Right. And it's not just him. There's a lot of witnesses who've come forth.
You and I have to take our final break. Please stand by, Preston. Exo Nation, Preston Dennett's our guest. Listen, if you're a skeptic or a believer, do me a favor. Send me an email. Tell me what your thoughts are. UFOs, are they real or are they not? Or the UFO phrase, unidentified flying object? Or should it be unknown flying object? Let me know. Xzone at classic1220.ca. Preston Dennett and I will return on the other side of this break as we continue here in the Xzone on your hometown radio, Classic 1220. And of course, classic1220.ca.
Well, I just got back from Roswell, where the aliens have been. And if you ask the feds the cause, well, they'll only lie again. Now I'm hunted by the gumshoes, and I'm wanted by the cops, 'cause they think that I might be the guy making circles in the crops. And I know that there's a conspiracy from the voices in my head. Elvis lives, that's clear to me. It's McCartney who is dead. And if the Mars men should come again and take me, I will go. I will take a trip on their rocket ship. God bless the UFO. Give JFK this message. It's the Cuban Army's fault. And I know that Dave Koresh is alive inside a vault. We've seen reports in papers of a guy who knows about a car that runs on chewing gum, but the Arabs rubbed him out. And we loudly warn that America is badly unprepared. With the Cold War through, we need something new that can get you good and scared. Do you wonder just who is warning you of conspiracies today? We're the ones who fill the rumor mill. We are the CIA.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-One. I'm Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, classic1220.ca. Preston Dennett is our guest. PrestonDennett.weebly.com is his website. And on Facebook, facebook.com/Preston.Dennett. Preston, where are your books available? Are they all available on Amazon?
Yes, they are. Other online retailers as well, bookstores.
Super. I just want to close off the UFO because I'd like to talk to you about some other topics that you discover and talk about. Wasn't it after the War of the Worlds and the public saw the reaction that Orson Welles got that the UFO craze actually started? You had George Adamski and you had some other ones. Isn't this when it all started, when we had this radio show that caused chaos, caused panic amongst the population?
Well, I mean, this was a subject that really became more popular in the 50s, which was well after that. I think that was sort of an introduction, but it came before that, at the turn of the century, when science fiction writers like Jules Verne and Orson Welles started writing about this. H.G. Wells, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Orson Welles was the guy from the War of the Worlds broadcast.
Right.
Which, did absolutely electrify people.
And in your opinion, are there more sightings after a box ticket sales movie makes a lot of money, like Close Encounters or E.T.? The public kind of just soaks all this in, and bang, do you get more sightings? Do you get more contactees? Do you get more abductions?
There's been studies to try to link that sort of thing to reports, and we don't see that.
No way.
What we are seeing is more and more people talking about this and reporting it. There's been a steady increase in reports, according to UFO reporting centers like the National UFO Reporting Center, NUFORC, and MUFON. But I think that's due to the fact that this is getting a lot more publicity. I'm not so sure the number of encounters themselves are increasing. That's been pretty steady, but it comes in waves. We do definitely see that. There's dry spells, and then suddenly it's active again.
When was the last wave?
I think we're overdue for a good one. It's been a while. There was, of course, Stevensville, but that was a while back. Yeah. Belgium had a wave, and of course Gulf Breeze and Wytheville, Virginia, the Hudson Valley wave. There's been a lot of waves throughout history, but haven't had one like that in quite some time. So,
is it possible that with the availability of high-tech cameras, since everybody's got an HD camera in their cell phone, and how technology has advanced, that the diminishment of UFO sightings and reportings has a lot to do with the advancement of technology? Because, you just can't fool all the people anymore.
I don't think so. People have been trying to take UFO photographs for a very long time, and it's not easy to do. It's much like trying to capture a car accident or a lightning strike or a wild animal.
But, there's a lot of webcams. There's a lot of traffic cams. There's a lot of dashboard cams. I'm surprised that nothing has been caught yet.
I think it is. It's just getting buried by the CGI and the Photoshop and all the nonsense and flat out hoaxing that is just flooding the media. So as I've said, photographic evidence alone is not great evidence anymore, because Photoshop is too easily accessible
Yeah.
to people. So photographic evidence just doesn't hold the weight that it used to. So I think that is a very important factor in all this.
Is there a connection between UFOs and other aspects of the paranormal? For example, a lot of people are now talking about, especially in the cryptid sector, that when UFOs appear, there are more sightings of Bigfoot. Is there any correlation in your expertise?
There is. It's almost statistically insignificant, though, because the vast majority of people, and I've looked into this, certainly, I've done my Bigfoot research.
Yeah.
Which was another field I kind of got dragged into, kicking and screaming, thinking this might be real. I really don't want to open up this can of worms.
Yeah.
But the Bigfoot evidence is really compelling. It reaches way, way back, probably farther than UFOs. And yeah, there are a few cases where these two phenomena intersect and seem to be related, but it's less than 1% of the actual number of cases. Still, it's worth addressing because there's a few hundred cases that really speak to this. So it's hard to explain. It does happen, but I'm not sure that we can get a whole lot from cases like these, because the vast majority of people who see a Bigfoot aren't going to see a UFO, and vice versa.
You also do a lot of research into ghosts, and I was wondering if there's anything new that you've discovered or that's come to your desk about ghost hauntings and other things that go bump in the night.
Well, it's pretty interesting. I think we're getting more of a handle on how to categorize and explain a lot of ghost encounters, with some being what we would call active spirits or earthbound souls that do interact in a live way, or whereas opposed to a residual haunting, perhaps, where people might see something that is not actually interacting with them or even perceiving them.
Right.
So it's a different type of phenomena, which has been labeled as ghosts, but might not be what we think of as an active spirit. And then, of course, poltergeists, which aren't ghosts at all necessarily, and appear to be something more along the lines of psychokinesis or uncontrolled telekinesis type of things, which aren't really ghost-related either. So I think we're beginning to be able to apply more technology to ghost research as well, with things like EVP and ghost boxes, which some I'm skeptical of, but every now and then, you get some really good evidence that's hard to explain away. I'm excited to see how technology can be used more in paranormal research. But again, can't be too careful with this stuff.
Exactly. Why don't you think mainstream science, why wouldn't they want to get involved in something as challenging as the paranormal, to prove or disprove for once and for all?
Yeah, well, there's a sort of a schism in the mainstream scientific community, because if you look at MUFON, it is filled with people with all kinds of degrees in every field of science you can name.
Right.
There are absolutely scientists looking into this, but it's an uphill battle. As any pioneer knows, you are going upstream, against the crowd when you're trying to research stuff like this, and it's difficult. But absolutely, I think we're making great progress, and this is the UFO subject in particular is really becoming much more accepted. Ghosts as well. I mean, we're seeing a lot of interest in this. Research into astral projection, near-death experiences, and all kinds of psychic phenomena are really getting a lot more attention.
And this information or this attention wasn't given prior to the internet.
Not as much as I think it deserves. Because I agree with you. This is something that scientists should absolutely look into. And I've talked to people who are absolute skeptics, and then I find out they haven't even examined the evidence. It's very difficult to hold a conversation with someone who's not even willing to examine the available evidence.
Right. That is so true.
Yeah, they have preconceived notions, like this is true or this is not true. Like, well, let's wait a second. Let's put aside our beliefs and what do we know through experiential knowledge. There's a huge difference between belief and knowledge. And that's something I think people need to be reminded of.
What do you think the impact of the proof of ETs visiting this planet would be?
I think that we're getting there, and I think it's going to bring the world together in a way that we definitely need. Finding out that we're not alone is a huge thing. This is probably going to be the big story of the century once it's fully vetted and proven by mainstream science.
There's something that I don't understand, and hopefully you can help me understand in the next 2 minutes, because that's all we have. If there is reverse engineering, okay, why is it then we're still using solid fuel rockets to get to the moon? And if the ETs are here, why do we need to go to the moon, or why do we need to go to Mars?
Yeah, well, I wish I could give you a more definitive answer. Again, I focus my research mostly on people who've had firsthand contact, but I do think that there probably is a lot going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I try to keep up with, the so-called secret space program.
Right.
I think there's a lot of the technology that we see is just the tip of the iceberg. And I know this because I have talked to military officials and whistleblowers, and there's a lot of technology that the general public has no idea about.
But does the general public need to know?
I think I'm all for truth and transparency.
But if we're truthful and transparent with our people, our citizens, then that transparency also goes to our enemies.
Yeah, well, this is the root of the problem. We shouldn't have enemies. We should be working together.
Well,
there is no reason for us to have wars.
There's but this is the way of the world. This world has never had peace for more than a few hours, few days, few weeks. We will never, in my opinion, hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Look what's happening in the Middle East. And that is supposed to be the chosen people. I'm sorry, there's too many contradictions. But listen, as always, time goes by so fast when you're with us, Preston. Thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to the next time that you're with us here on the X Zone. X Zone, I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue with our show right here from the studios of Classic 1220, your hometown radio right here in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. We're here Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight. Wow. 5 days a week, 2 hours a show, 10 guests a week. That's 40 guests a month. That's how we try to help you, the X Zone Nation, understand and look at the conundrum that so many of our fellow humans face. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Stand by for hour 2, and our guest is Kevin Randall.